For 10 years I, 25, was friends with Bethany, 31. We had some good times. At the same time Bethany was very insecure and therefore very competitive with me. If I achieved something, Bethany had already done it and did it twice as well. I won't try and portray myself as the greatest friend. I know I wasn't. I was very immature myself and snapped at her a few times. After deciding I didn't like where my mental state and esteem was at, I began caring for myself better. At this point Bethany was engaged. This made our relationship even worse because not only was she critical of being single, she also put me on the back burner a lot. But the final straw was when my parents died in a crash and she didn't reach out or call, but instead used the excuse she was busy planning her marriage. I realized our relationship was emotionally draining and she didn't care about me. I ended our friendship as respectively as possible. Now a year and a half has passed. Bethany reached out to me to tell me she had 3 miscarriages and her husband has filed for divorce. Her family has taken his side. She was crying in her call, saying she just needed someone to be there for her. I don't know what come over me, maybe the years of building resentment and anger finally spewing out, but I said Bethany, we're not friends because you weren't there for me, so I have no obligation to be there for you. Click. My boyfriend who overheard the call was shocked by what I had done. He told me I was a horrible person and walked out. We later discussed things. I explained my relationship with Bethany, but he's still fixed on the belief I was a heartless and selfish idiot. My friends won't tell me what they really think. So, was this action so bad I'm an idiot? First of all, not the idiot, because you're right you owe nothing to her, although you could have been kinder but then again, she could have reached out when your parents died. Second, you said you were friends for 10 years, and you're 25, and she's 31, so you became friends with her when you were 15, and she was 21. I hope she wasn't shocked when you would act immaturely at times you were a kid. That's literally the same age difference as me and my younger sister, and even though we get along she's a kid, and I can't talk to her like I would an adult, so that whole thing is slightly confusing to me. Good job though for sticking up for yourself. She is not your responsibility. Friendship is reciprocal, and as you said, she wasn't there for you so you have no obligation to her. The fact she was 21 and befriended a 15-year-old is a red flag in the first place. It sounds like she wanted someone who would pander to her every problem and every whim, but as you grew up you stopped doing that and started having a life, a real life, of your own. Because she saw you as an emotional crutch and not a true friend she didn't want to and probably didn't even know how to deal with that. You deserve to be surrounded by better people. Not the idiot, you ended a friendship with a person who clearly did not care a bit about you and did not support or gave you a shoulder to cry on when your parents died. It honestly is terrible what happened to her, but she can't expect you to be that friend when she was never there for you. Your boyfriend needs to realize this, and if this is a pattern with your boyfriend it might also be better to rethink if he truly understands you. My husband, 29, and I, 23, have been married for a year but have been together for almost 3 years now. We are currently staying with my in-laws for 2 weeks whilst our house gets painted. My sister-in-law and her husband and 2 kids also are living with my in-laws as well. Sadly my mother-in-law doesn't like me very much, she wanted my husband to marry one of her friend's daughter, who was also his ex, but I still try to be as friendly as possible with her, since she is my husband's mother. I just want to add that we could have stayed in a hotel, but my mother-in-law insisted that my husband stay with them. I was helping my mother-in-law cook dinner. We made a simple dish of salmon and some veggies, and she plated the food and placed them on the dinner table, whilst I remaking our dessert. I had made an apple crumble beforehand, but it was too sweet for her liking, so she told me to make it again. After we all sat down to eat, I noticed the way my plate was orientated, the salmon was on the right, and the veggies were on the left. For nearly everyone this isn't a big deal and wouldn't bother them, but I have a bit of a quirk that my meat or fish should always be on the left and any vegetables or sides should be on the right. It's very hard to explain, but unless I move my food around so that the meat is on the left and anything else is on the right, I find it very hard to eat and swallow. To solve this issue, I just turned my plate in a 180 degree so that the salmon would be on the left and the veggies on the right. I didn't say anything or make any expression, but my mother-in-law noticed me turning my plate around and start to blow up. She said that moving something that was already set on the table was bad manners and couldn't believe how rude I was being in her house. I apologized and I tried to explain that I just had this thing where one thing needs to be on a certain side, but she interrupted me and went on a tangent saying that this shows how immature I am and that my husband's ex never behaved like this. My husband tried to calm her down saying that we shouldn't argue whilst having dinner, but then she started complaining about how I couldn't cook whilst making dinner together. She kept having a problem with how big I cut the veggies, even though they were perfectly normal sized, and how bad of a wife I was for not being able to do simple things. Throughout the entire meal she kept complaining, and I felt horrible and was pretty much on the verge of tears. My sister-in-law later told me that her kids were more mature than I am, and my husband also got annoyed at me, said I ruined dinner for the whole family and this whole mess could have been avoided if I had done nothing. I now feel horrible for ruining dinner, especially since my husband works a lot and doesn't see his family often. Not the idiot. Your mother-in-law and sister-in-law are looking for any excuse to put you down. It didn't matter if you were perfect, they would have found something. I'm more concerned that your husband didn't 100% have your back while you were being abused by his family. I know you didn't ask for advice, but this sounds like it could be a very troublesome marriage. Holy hell, your in-laws and husband have problems. What's next? She's gonna yell at you for holding your utensils a certain way. Honestly, you have a husband problem. Had my husband blamed me like yours did, I would have told him I'm heading out and I'll see him later when he apologizes. Turning a plate around is absolutely okay. Yelling and complaining at you for doing it is not okay. You being blamed for your mother-in-law and sister-in-law being an idiot is not okay. Your mother-in-law should obviously be treating you with more respect and not blowing up for something as innocent as reorienting a plate of food. But you have way bigger problems. Your husband ought to have immediately shut down that comparison stuff. You are his wife and he has a responsibility to see that you are never forced into such a disrespectful environment. The fact that he not only fails to speak out against this treatment but blames you for somehow inviting this bizarre cruel aggression shows that he is a failing partner to you. My husband, 39, and I, 37, have been married for 8 years and have 2 kids. He and his sister-in-law, 31, have always been close despite the age difference. There's also a brother in between who isn't relevant to this post. Sister-in-law is an artist who has been working full-time on her art since graduating from school several years ago. I respect art and believe it can absolutely be someone's full-time job, but the fact is that she's never made any money off of her art aside from selling the occasional piece to a family friend. I don't want to pass judgment on her art because I'm no expert esteem person here, but she's been trying to make it for years and years at this point and hasn't gained any traction. I don't think she's going to start making money off it anytime soon. Still, she considers her art a career and my husband is supportive and proud of her. We own multiple pieces of hers. Her parents were fully supporting her financially until a couple years ago when she moved in with her boyfriend, who took over. She and the boyfriend broke up earlier this year and she moved into a nice apartment funded by her parents. Unfortunately, my in-laws recently passed away suddenly and unexpectedly. It was devastating. What they left behind will support sister-in-law for a while, but not forever and not in the standard of living she's accustomed to, which includes having to move out of her current apartment. Husband told me he wanted to give her money every month so that she can keep working full-time on her art and maintain her standard of living. We both fortunately have high-paying jobs and a lot already saved for our kids, so we could easily afford it. However, I don't like the idea of supporting a non-disabled adult forever who could make her own living but chooses not to. I'm okay with helping her out temporarily while she starts working and figures out how to make her own living, but not forever. I don't care if she starts out at minimum wage, she just has to be doing something that will make money and start her path to independence. I did slip up and call it a real job to my husband. She and husband are both telling me I'm an idiot because if she has to work full-time she won't have time anymore for her art and that being an artist is a real job already. He says I don't understand the sibling bond since I'm an only child. His other brother agrees with me and says it would be about time sister-in-law got out into the real world. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. I am an artist, and I am working to sustain my art career on the side until it can become my full-time job. Current job is slightly related to art though. No capable adult should expect to piggyback on other people's work for the rest of their lives. That is really disgusting. Your husband is slightly idiot just because I get wanting to help out immediate family, especially since you guys are well off. But your sister-in-law is a massive idiot. She needs to spend a bit of time in a less affluent part of the world and become a fully formed adult in my opinion. Not the idiot. She's a grown adult who, as it sounds, barely has to pay for anything in her life and had things handed to her mostly. Art can very well be a paying job, like you mentioned, but in her case it is not, and she needs to get a real job, whether that be part or full-time. Please stand your ground and do not financially support her forever. You have yourself and your family to take care of first and foremost, and just because you theoretically can, doesn't mean you should enable her. Finding a paying job doesn't have to take her away from her art. It can be related or semi-related, if she looks. Depending, why not start with working at a museum, art gallery or studio, offering to teach others skills. Heck, even those paint and wine nights are paying gigs. If she has the feeling that these are beneath her, then she needs to be introduced to the idea of networking. Get into areas that are art adjacent, and she may meet someone that can give her a hand up or a name of someone, while also learning to take care of herself. I, 18, take the bus everywhere because I would genuinely fear for the lives of everyone in my town if I ever got my driver's license. I always prefer to sit at the back of the bus because the way it's set up gives creepy old dudes little to no opportunity to sit near me and make unsettling comments, and I find that nearly every time I sit anywhere else something along those lines happens. Nobody can sit behind me if I'm sitting at the back, and the available seats are reduced due to the pandemic, so it greatly limits the chances of gaining unwanted attention. I've been going to a 2-week paid program at my local college, and this other girl boards the same bus as I do, just before picking me up. I board the bus, put my earbuds in and mind my own. I did it the whole week last week. On the Friday I noticed when I sat down she got up and moved places. I didn't think much of it, though, because I've not done anything to bother her. This morning when I boarded the bus she motioned for me to take my earbuds out, and when I did she said, "Can you not sit around me, it's a bit weird and it makes me uncomfortable." I kind of chuckled, not meaning to, but it just sounded absurd to me. I said, "I don't even interact with you, and I'm literally 5 seats away, I don't know what to tell you." She said, "Well, I board the bus before you, first come first serve. Sit here when I'm not here." It's typically seen as creepy when you sit near strangers when there's all this open space. I put my earbuds back in and ignored her for the rest of the ride before getting off the bus. Here's the thing, I'm all for people setting boundaries and whatnot, but at the end of the day, it's a public bus. I can sit wherever I please as long as it's not in the aisle or in the seats that are restricted due to COVID. I'm honestly not sure what to think, it's iffy. Would I be the idiot if I continued to sit in the back of the bus after being told not to? I'm going to go with not the idiot. Based on your post you are 5 seats away, so you're not really sitting around her. As you said, you are also minding your own business and ignoring her. Also, since it's public transportation, chances are she's going to sit near a stranger at some point. I don't think this is about boundaries so much as she wants the back of the bus to herself. She is right that it's first come first serve, but you're not asking her to give up her seat. If she feels it is creepy and there is so much empty space, then she can move. If she bothers you about it, say you have your own reasons to sit in the back of the bus, you don't have to give her your reasons unless you want to, but they are good reasons. Not the idiot. When riding the bus, you have claim over exactly one seat, the one you're sitting in. If you tried to take her seat from her, "I got on first" would be a valid argument. But she does not get to dictate who sits in a seat 5 seats away. Keep sitting wherever you want. If she asks you to move, tell her you are sitting in a perfectly legal seat, and if she feels uncomfortable she is welcome to choose any other seat or stand. Not the idiot. If I was her, and I thought someone was being creepy and making it a point to sit a certain distance from me, I'd start sitting in a different place every day. If you started following her and adjusted your seat accordingly, I could see why she'd say something. But if you continue to go for the same location, it clearly isn't about her. I like sitting in the back. If you aren't comfortable sitting near me, you can sit somewhere else. There is an entire bus and it's weird that you keep sitting where you know I will be if I make you uncomfortable. That's all I'd say and just leave it at that. This happened yesterday, but I, 28, was at my local mall doing shopping. When I finished up I went out to my car. I parked in an above-ground parking building. When I got to my car, I noted there was a bunch of I'd say 14-16, rough guess since I didn't bother asking, they were skateboarding, just doing what kids do really. Then suddenly, I heard a blood-curdling scream, and I look over, and I see a kid on the ground holding his leg. So I walk over to see if everything was okay, to say the least, everything was not okay. The kid broke his leg in a bad way, not sure how as I wasn't really paying them any attention. But was for sure broken. Everyone was freaking out, and I said I'll call the ambulance, which just made the kid cry harder saying something along the lines like my parents are going to kill me. His friends were saying I should just give him a ride to the hospital as it was only 3 blocks away. I thought for a moment and opted to still call for an ambulance. I called the ambulance, they showed up like 5 minutes later. The whole time everyone was trying to convince me to just drive him, and I stayed firm of nope, not gonna happen, the ambulance is on the way. After the kid was put into the ambulance, and I gave my statement to the police show up to calls with ambulances to make sure they have all the needed info. The kids were all still complaining that I could have just given him a ride to the hospital instead of making his parents go into debt. Man, I think they watch too much American TV because we're in Canada. No one goes into debt for an ambulance ride here. Last time I had to get an ambulance to the hospital, it cost me like $50. Thank you Canadian healthcare. Anyways, later when I came home, I was telling my girlfriend about what went down. And she called me an idiot too, because you should have just done the right thing. The kid was hurt and you have a car, and I said back, and ambulances are a thing, and I'm a total stranger to this kid, and like what would have happened if the kid somehow got more hurt while in my car, not trying to catch a case. Wanted some outside perspective, am I the idiot for not giving the kid a ride to the hospital? Not the idiot. You did the right thing by calling the ambulance as they are prepared for cases like this, unless you have like a stretched in the back of your car. You're a good guy for even checking up on the kids instead of just driving away. I won't blame the kids, as they were probably just freaking out, and kids can be pretty irrational, especially when one of the friends is hurt. Your girlfriend is kinda the idiot since she's now blaming you saying you should have done the right thing, when you by far did the right thing. Not the idiot. You had no way of knowing how bad the break was, if there was a bleeding issue, or other things paramedics know. You shouldn't have taken responsibility for the child because you couldn't provide medical treatment if he was in crisis. Calling the ambulance was the right call, and nobody should be telling you otherwise. Don't take on the responsibility of providing medical care to a minor, nor a stranger OP. What would have happened if the injury was worsened? Or if the kid made up a story about you insisted you take him and not call the ambulance? Or if the ride took too long and the kid called the police? On a good day, you'd have gotten a thank you. Better chance you'd have gotten a you kidnapped my baby, you could have killed him, and it's your fault if he loses his leg. You did the right thing OP.